Hi, this is me, and I need to make a rant about I think just how sucky both the neurotypical and disabled communities are in general. So, I am on the spectrum. You may have picked that up from my account name, depending on where you're watching this. But I have to say that neither community has been great to me over the course of my life. Part of that might be because I'm in the awkward middle zone where I feel like I'm too, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but I don't know how else to say it, too smart for a lot of the disabled community. Like, I fluently get sarcasm and humor, and I play poker a lot of the time, and I actually am pretty good at it. And I can't relate to a lot of people because I try to tell jokes with a lot of them and it just goes right over their head. But I can't relate to the non-disabled community either because I feel like I'm still too awkward for them a lot of the time. And both of y'all kind of suck, honestly. If this was Reddit, I know a lot of people are like, oh, one community sucks and the other's perfect. No, both of them suck major quantities of arse. So let's start with the neurotypical community. You guys are way too judgmental. Like, seriously. A lot of the stuff that I've dealt with from you guys is just ridiculous. Like, I've been excluded a lot of my life by you. You don't even give me a chance. You don't even tell me why. I also feel like there's this expectation that I'm supposed to bend over backwards to accommodate you, but you don't feel like you should have to do anything in return. Like, it's all on me to do everything for you. And then when I try to do coping mechanisms to, deal with that, like I remember in college, I would listen to music sometimes. People would whine about the music. Oh, I can hear it for 2 seconds while you're walking to get food at the cafeteria. And it's like, you just want to tell them, stop attacking my coping mechanism. Maybe I wouldn't have to do this if you guys wouldn't exclude me and treat me like I'm an outsider all the time. But they do that, and then they attack. It's like there's no sympathy at all. And there's also just this way too judgmental. And they don't even tell you what the problem is. I also feel like there's a problem with infantilization. Like, a lot of these people, they just kind of, if they're not too judgmental, they infantilize us. They basically say, oh, you're not capable of anything. So they don't expect much from you, and they don't help you with things because they think it's hopeless. They try, I don't know. A lot of programs I've been in run by neurotypicals, they kind of just try to fast track you into minimum wage jobs because they think that's all you're capable of. And when you're someone like me who could go to college and succeed, no thanks to the neurotypical crowd there, they don't really help you because the programs aren't designed for that. And people don't believe that you can do it, so they don't help you. Same thing with dating. I try to get help from people with dating, and I feel like people don't believe that I could, so they don't try to help or something. Obviously that's not relevant now, but back in the past, that was a real problem. I felt like I was reaching out for help, and people were like, oh, you're too broken, or too this, or too that. And it's like, can you just stop it and help me? And stop acting like I can't and trying to make me believe it too. I remember even going to my sister, coming up with things that I wanted to do in my life, and she'd always shoot them down. It's sort of like, and offer no alternative. Maybe they wouldn't have been easy to accomplish, but you could at least be somewhat supportive when someone goes to you for these things. Parents too, they're like, oh, they basically think I'm helpless because, there's certain things that I don't do as well as others, but it's like, you never taught me, so how is that my fault? You can't say you can't do it if you never showed someone how to do it. Of course they're not going to know how to do it. And it's just, I don't know. But I don't think that the disabled community is really that much better. I think one of the major problems is lack of communication. Okay, let me start with one thing that's good about them. They do seem to be a lot less judgmental in certain aspects. You can, vocalize to yourself and, listen to music, and they tend to whine a lot less than the neurotypical community. But this comes at a cost, because when you try to actually be friends with these people and have meaningful relationships, what happens? Every single time, it just seems like it falls flat because it ends up being me doing all the dang work. I try to reach out, I try to do this, I try to do that. I basically set myself on fire to keep them warm, and then I ask them to throw me a blanket once in a while when I'm cold, and they act like it puts them out too much. You know, and look, I get it that it's not easy for you to communicate, but I feel like there's this attitude where they just feel like first of all, they don't even acknowledge they have a problem. And they act like it's too much of a burden on them to try because it stresses me out. Well, you know what? What do you think it makes me do when I have to constantly cover for you just not even replying to my text messages about plans I'm trying to make? Did you ever think about that? Are you just that selfish? There's also a problem with, I'm trying to think, yeah, and it's just the unwillingness to admit you have a problem. Now, I'm not saying neurotypical people don't reply to messages. They definitely have that issue, but at least they acknowledge that this is a problem and allow you to work through it, come to a happy medium sometimes. The disabled community, when you bring up and say, I'm tired of being the only one that ever makes plans, the only one that ever reaches out, the only one, and having my messages ignored, a lot of the times you're like, well, I'm trying as hard as I can, and they get all defensive and try to make you feel like the bad guy, and it's just like, come on. Did you even, do you know how much I'm putting myself out for you? And then I ask for one little thing in return and you act like it's too much? Ugh. And there's definitely a selfishness problem in a lot of this community as well. It feels like a lot of them never really grew up to the point where they realize other people actually matter. I remember reaching out to people and asking for favors after I've done things for them. And they act like they just don't do it. Like I say, can you read this story? It's really important. And it doesn't happen for months. I say, do you want to read my story ideas? And it's like, no, it's like, but I thought I was your friend. Why can't you, again, shouldn't you want to read your friend's stories? And then there's this issue, I don't know. It feels like a lot of them are just very selfish too, especially in, I think, the autism community. I have to say the autistic community sucks. You guys are just, the lack of empathy that I've seen from you guys is awful. I know you complain that people say you have no empathy, and I'm not saying it's true, but you need to do a better job of showing it, because I'm tired of reaching out to these disabled groups and trying to tell my story, get someone who should understand what it's like to just listen for once in my life, and then I get ignored. And then my favorite thing is when I get tired of it, because it usually happens repeatedly, and I call it out and say, what the heck? This is not acceptable behavior, you're doing exactly what everyone else has done to me before. Then what do? They get defensive, and they're like, oh, people are busy, and always making excuses to justify their behavior, which, when it's not even, again, first of all, way to show that you actually give a crap about someone when you try to make excuses for your bad behavior instead of acknowledging you messed up and trying to do better. But I also have a problem with the fact that it's just a BS excuse, because a lot of the times if people are so busy, how come they have no problem changing the subject to something else immediately afterwards? It's sort of like if I say to someone, hey, I'm going through a rough time, and they just immediately turn to someone else and say, oh, so how was the baseball game? So how about them Mets? It's like, come on, what's wrong with you? You're not too busy if you can change the subject and talk about other stuff. It's just a slap in the face. And I don't even need to go into the brony community. Jesus Christ. I've tried reaching out to them, and they basically just crucified my story and downvoted into oblivion, which, besides being incredibly disheartening because no one would even explain why, so I had a fair chance to defend myself, it basically ruined the traffic. Because if your story gets downvoted, it doesn't appear high on the search results. And also, there's the fact that, again, if you could disable ratings, it still doesn't appear high on the search results by default. So you can't win. You can't win against that, and that's what they did. And I've just never really felt like this community has actually given a crap about what I've been through, even though they've probably been through a lot of the same things. I feel like there's a lot of self-righteousness, we're perfect and everyone else is bad. I'm not saying the neurotypical community doesn't suck. They really do, but you guys suck too. And I think a lot of your problems, it has to do with certain behaviors you have that you refuse to even acknowledge maybe could be improved a little bit. Like ignoring people's text messages, changing the subject when someone's trying to talk about something serious and basically making it know you don't give a shit. You think that might turn people off a little bit? So yeah, going on 10 minutes, but I think both communities suck, and I definitely want to verbally eviscerate them in the near future. It's just getting the wherewithal of actually being able to do it, because I've been really busy and tired lately. So it's hard to formulate rants when you don't have a lot of time and mental wherewithal. See you guys later.